Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is a game that made EA have to take a moment to think about how they do business. This game was a landmark for modern gaming, but gets completely shadowed out by better games. EA believed that single player games were completely dead in the water, and the only type of games people were interested in were live service, microtransaction rich games, which was far from the truth. But on the 15th of November 2019, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was released. Within 5 months, the game had sold over 10 million copies, and based off the sales alone of this game, it's within one of the top 10 best-selling games they've ever made. Before we continue on the conversation, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more gaming content like this, I upload that every single Friday, so make sure to subscribe for that. Anyway, back on with the video. Now, the reason why I want to talk about Star Wars Fallen Order today is mainly because of the massive impact it had on the gaming culture, and honestly, so many people don't realise this. As just a few years before Fallen Order's release, EA had set a precedent. Every single company wanted to be like EA when it comes to the amount of money they were making. EA simply put it that they didn't believe that games that were single player would actually make money anymore in today's modern sense of gaming. The reason why this is so important is because in a hypothetical world, Fallen Order would have released on the exact same date and only sold 1 million copies after a month, and by the end of 5 months only sold 2 million copies. And then even by now may have only sold 2.5 million. Which may sound like a lot, but in EA's eyes, that is a pitiful amount of sales, and they would have been proven completely right in their idea of modern day single player gaming. They would have released an issued statement saying that Fallen Order was an absolute failure, and they're going to continue to release games that people want to play. Ones that have updates every single week, the ones that are talked about years later, ones that don't push a story, but simply push microtransactions and loot boxes. If this was what happened, other companies would have completely followed suit. Companies like Ubisoft would believe that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the pinnacle of single player games, which really they kind of do currently, which is a very scary thought in the modern day sense of single player games. And they would honestly have the belief that games like Skyrim, Assassin's Creed 4, or even Red Dead 2 are absolutely dreadful and wouldn't be good unless they are filled to the brim with microtransactions. Luckily for everyone when it comes to the gaming world, this didn't happen. This meant that we got one of the best sequels in modern day gaming from companies like Rockstar, and other amazing titles on the way from Bethesda, and hopefully whatever CD Projekt Red release with the next Witcher game. Companies really like Bethesda are a great example of kind of not requiring necessarily to forcefully put tons of microtransactions in games. Yes, I know there's a lot of controversy around things like the Creation Club when it comes to Bethesda, but really a lot of their money was also made just through the sales of games alone. However, one thing that I'm definitely not saying is that gaming companies don't rely on these sorts of what would be classed as money-hungry tactics to make games possible. Companies like Rockstar are a great example of this, a company that really I'm fine with the fact that they've pushed off GTA 6 for as long as they have, and have pushed off other games. Yes, they may be making tons of money with GTA Online, and people may be complaining about the amount of money they make from that. But really, the best way of looking at it is yes, a lot of that money is going to be getting split across shareholders, but also a lot of that money can also be reused and put back into work for games like GTA 6 and Red Dead Redemption 3. And I think that's where the issue does lie in comparison to some of these games, because things like EA, they make tons of money and tons of profit, but they don't really show it in terms of putting it back into the company and making games of really high quality in comparison to, let's say, Rockstar. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that companies would have just completely dropped the single player genre as a whole if this was to have occurred, but personally I do think that a lot more of anti-single player experiences would have come down the pipeline, mainly involving things like games that would be more fun to play, multiplayer, and things like Skyrim, for example, are a great example of this, where Skyrim is a great game and everyone for so many years wanted to play Skyrim multiplayer, but it turns out it actually isn't as fun. It was designed for a single player experience. But if Fallen Order had failed, EA would have been proven completely right with their belief that single player gaming was completely dead in the water, and that there was no point of even releasing single player games. The main takeaway that companies made with games like Fallen Order, and especially EA, is just proof of concept that if you make a game that's good quality, and at least decent enough quality with a great story, or at least a good enough story, then you can actually get away with making a game profitable without it having to have tons of scummy tactics involved. Fallen Order is a game that completely set a massive precedent on release and completely proved to everyone within gaming that single player games are not dead. I know so many people who don't play single player games because they completely view games like Fallen Order, Skyrim, the Assassin's Creed franchise, Red Dead Redemption 2 for example, or even things like The Witcher 3 as antisocial sort of games, so they don't want to play them. Which is fair enough, you may not want to play a game if it's personal multiplayer, but so many amazing stories get lost because people just don't want to experience them just by themselves. They'd rather play a game where they can at least get away with playing it with someone else at the same time. Personally, I do think so many more people need to play more single player games, as really the mass majority of people who play games are primarily playing multiplayer games. But honestly, there are so many great stories out there, and many of them I'm going to be talking about in the future, and I've already talked about on this channel. So make sure to go check out the other videos on this channel, and if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and do subscribe for more content in the future. I upload gaming content every single Friday, and I try to upload a gaming critique once a month, but every single Wednesday I upload whatever I want, so make sure to stick around for all of those videos. And with that all being said, I hope you guys have a good one.